dye. So I got to weaving from all of my sewing. So I grew up as a sewer. I grew up sewing. My mom had a marine canvas shop, so I sewed, and I made boat covers and cushions and did all of that, and made quilts. And so I've started dyeing fabric. I've been dyeing fabric for about 7 years. And then 3 years ago I started the weaving. But I've got 4 quilts in the quilt show, so you can't see those right now. But if you look over here, you'll see some of my fiber quilts. So up on the top, you see some quilts. They're all of the fabric in those quilts is all hand dyed. And most of them are little experiments in hand dyeing and experiments in applications and different things. And then this monster that's in the middle, I took a drawing class because I'm intrigued with putting images and more mark making on fabric. So I took a drawing class and my weaving class were both continuing ed classes at Mass Art. So they meet once a week. So you learn a new technique and then you're given an assignment for the end of the week. And so this was texture class. So the assignment was something at least 6 feet in one direction with both implied texture and real texture and all the other forms of texture. So, and he wanted you to do something that you were afraid of. So that was sort of the goal of the assignment. And I decided that he's just a monster. I decided something with a big beak and big claws and wings and could climb any rocks and could fly anywhere was about as scary as I could think of. To the left of it, you see the fiber pieces that I'm trying to make into the monster. And then you can see the head starting, and this will actually be the nose piece above the beak. So I have to texture that fabric and do all of that with that. And this is going to be some part of this is the underbelly. So I've stitched the fabric onto a hard base to make an underbelly. And this will be the back. So I've stitched it again onto this hard base. And then I've stitched this into pleats. And I've stitched all the pleats closed. And then I will open up the pleat so he'll be textured like that body is in the paper one. And then I still have to work on making a set of wings that'll all attach onto. So this project is an interesting sort of dimensional space problem solving thing that I just like problem solving. That's what I do. So if I can make it into a problem, then I have to solve it. So that's fun. So we'll go out and check out the Mad Weave.
Welcome to another edition of Dead Air Live. I'm JoJo. And
hi, I'm Jean.
Yes, and here we are. And we have a great show. It is about, Jean is a sculptural weaving expert. And you have a studio called Dancing Water Studios here in Somerville, Massachusetts.
I do.
And you are quite the expert. You do a lot of mad weaving.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, mad weaving.
It's called Mad Weave, yeah.
Mad Weave. Okay, where do you see the stuff we're going to see? It's fantastic. What's the first clip we're going to see?
The first clip, well, we saw a little bit. We just saw a little bit of the sewing stuff. So we're going to see a little more of my fabric and my fabric dyeing.
Okay, very
and
good.
then we'll
very
watch.
Good.
So we'll see that and get a little background as to how I got to weaving.
Yes, but let's talk a little bit about your fabrics because you are, I won't call you a pack rat, but you love to collect all different types of material.
I'm not a pack rat.
Oh, you're not?
Relative to...
Okay, well, go ahead.
Oh, my mom has a bigger fabric stash than I have.
She does? Is she as organized as you?
She's pretty organized. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, see, then I have to add all the weaving stash. That's what you're going to see, too. You can see my fabric stash,
okay,
which actually, for a fabric person, isn't massive.
Oh, I think it's massive. Not only do you collect fabric scraps, but you also create different, you do a lot of tie-dyes. So
Fabric dyeing, yeah.
Fabric dyeing. So if you can't find the material that you want, you're gonna make it yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, and I prefer actually the made stuff over the stuff that is on the commercially bought fabric. So my quilts very seldom have commercial fabric on them. Most of them, they're all hand dyes and hand printed, hand painted, all of that. So let's go to that show.
But before we go there, what you have on now, did you dye this?
This is actually called Discharge.
Did you make this?
I did not make the shirt.
Okay.
I'm
surprised.
Because I found it, and actually here, see the back of this? It's a Joe Boxer shirt.
Oh, can you see that?
The button, I turned all the buttons around so they would be just black on the outside. But the shirt is black. The original shirt is black.
Okay.
And then you actually bleach it. And
So
it's called Discharge. I did.
So you did do this.
I decorated it.
So you got the shirt, it was black, and you turned it into this.
Yes.
That's amazing. Can you teach people how to do this?
You take bleach and you go spray, spray, spray.
Oh, okay, well, there you have it. Okay,
And then-
let's...
No, actually, you spray the bleach. that is how hard it is. You
Okay.
spray the bleach on,
Yeah.
and then you actually have to dip it into vinegar.
Oh, what kind of vinegar? White
And
wine vinegar?
White, just white vinegar.
Just straight, the whole
Just
thing.
Yeah, you just put it in some
So
white
it
vinegar
stops
to stop the
bleeding.
bleach.
Oh,
The
stop
bleach.
the bleach.
Right. Otherwise, it'll just eat the fabric.
Oh,
So,
no,
so
okay.
depending on how the black was made, it will come out different colors. Like different fabric will turn. Some will turn a little oranger, and some will turn rustier.
This is fantastic.
and Some will turn a little bluer or greener.
I want to
Yeah.
go home and get some bleach and go. Psh, 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 psh,
Yeah. So you do, and yeah, that's really all. This shirt. That's
Okay.
really all I did.
All right.
On some of them, I've taken lace and done it through the lace, and you
All
just
right.
use a mask on.
So let's check out that clip. Let's go and
Fabrics.
see the fabrics.
Sewing and quilting is what I've always done my whole life. So you actually have, and then for the last 7 years I've been dyeing my fabric because I've never been particularly fond of making my quilts out of regular fabrics in the print store. In the fabric store where they're all prints. So I have yards and yards. I've actually taught some fabric dyeing classes. So creating texture, creating no texture are some of the various forms, and if you draw on it, it actually expands out unless you specifically thicken your dye, and then you can start doing some print work. And so these beautiful copper pieces that you see over here are called Tjaps, T-J-A-P. They're from Bali, and they're actually used for stamping fabric. And you can see with this one, I've stamped this piece of fabric with this beautiful pattern, and this Tjap in the middle is making that pattern on it. So I have a thickened black dye that I put on, and then I just literally stamped it. So these are beautiful stamps. They're actually antiques that they refurbish and ship to the United States for us to buy and drool over. So there's lots of ways to put marks on fabric and make fabric, but one of the things when you're quilting, you have to have a huge stash of fabric. So you just have drawers of quilting fabric. And then when you've done quilting, you actually have drawers of all the scraps for all the little details and everything. So it goes on and on. But now that I'm also a weaver, it doesn't stop there. So then we have to have our boxes of just weaving fibers. So there's some of my 1/2-inch reed and my smoked reed and some cordage to weave with. And because having volumes of weaving material actually matters. And let's see, I got some more in there. Oh, these are the rest of my piano keys for my piano. So I've got like wood parts stored in here. and then fabric and undyed fabric and I was in a 10 by 10 room before I moved into this space, so as you can see, it wouldn't fit. So this is lace and linens that I've collected. Somebody had a yard sale and they couldn't sell any of their beautiful laces, so she gave them all to me. And here's my entire collection of commercial print fabrics. I don't have many. Most of them are either to be dyed or thing. And all my reference books. Yeah, you know, it's cool to be able to have a big enough studio to put it all someplace. So that's my studio. Well, actually not my studio. I have a sewing machine over here that I keep on a standard table, and I have what's called a quilt extension bed on it. So it's my workhorse. It does everything. And then when I want to quilt the tops of a machine, I have this beautiful treadle machine that I bought. I'm just so excited about this machine. I love this machine.
That clip was fantastic, Jeanne. Oh my goodness.
I love my treadle machine.
Oh yeah.
My treadle machine is just so much fun.
How old is that machine?
It's from 1916. Because it still has its date on it, so you can go online and you can find out what date and what half of the year. Like, I forget whether it's the first half of the year or the second half of the year that machine was made.
Wow.
Because it still has a serial number on it. And Singer treadle machines are still like used around the world.
What if you need a part? 1916, can they fix it?
Yep, they can still fix it.
They can still fix it.
Still fix it.
That's
But when you
unbelievable.
look underneath it, it has these cast iron parts. I mean, the only reason you would need a part for that machine is because you dropped it and broke the machine. I mean, it is the machine will never wear out per se.
Wow.
You keep it oiled, you keep it just, you might wear out. As a matter of fact, some of them, they've worn the serial number off them, so you can't tell what year it was made. But it's called a red eye machine, and it has that beautiful red oval on it. And you actually, with your foot, you do the treadle up and down, and it's so rhythmic and whole body. I enjoy doing the tops of my quilts with it.
You become one with your singing machine. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna look at the next clip, which is your aquarium.
Yeah.
I
know
love
you're
the
dying
aquarium.
to get to this one.
I love the aquarium. When you see all the different uses that you have with all the different coils, plastic bags, gimp, plumbing supplies, nails, yarn, what am I missing? Candle wax, the octopus.
And the squid. Those are the two, those are people's favorite animals. Although they're hidden in the back, but when people really get a close-up with the seahorses.
The seahorses! Those are wicked cool.
I actually have a woman that does printed beautiful fabric panels that she shows nationally. And if she shows this one particular one that I brought my seahorses to that should hang in front of them, I'm gonna have to make a couple more seahorses, and we're talking about sort of doing a joint show if she has a reason to show that piece. So
the seahorses look like they don't have a definite pattern. They look like is it a wire?
Yeah, wire frame.
It's a wire frame, okay.
Yeah, and then that paper yarn is twined around it. I actually describe it in the video.
Okay, let's check that out.
Yeah, we'll check out the video and
super.
Look at that. So I've always been a fiber artist. I've always sewn and made quilts and everything. And then 3 years ago, I took a sculptural weaving class at Mass Art.
Where you learned this tri-weave thing.
No, actually, I hadn't learned the tri-weave. I learned all the other techniques that it takes to make a basket. Right, so this is twining. So Natalie Miebach teaches it as a sculptural weaving class. So the goal is to learn basket weaving techniques without making baskets. This is what came out. So this is my semester of weaving. So the fish actually begins it because it was about exploring material. So he's made of spline. And the spline is what you put when you do screening.
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
recognize it, yep.
So the spline, and then the wire inside, and then he's got nails, and he's got gimp, and he's got some tape, and he's got a bead eyeball and nails. And then the question was, if you so she makes, there's no base on this, you recognize, so
Yeah.
she takes a cardboard base
Ah.
with holes in it, and you put all the weavers in, the
Yeah.
spokes in. So I put the wires in and then did this.
Okay.
And then when I took the base off, it collapsed.
Yes.
And then I'm like, well, what am I doing with it collapsed? So then it became a fish.
A fish.
That's how
yeah.
it became a fish.
So you didn't know it was a fish.
I
when you
didn't know.
started.
No, absolutely none. I didn't
You-
know it was a fish
was-
when I started.
You didn't start with that part then. You just were creating.
I was just
shape.
creating a shape.
I see.
And then the question becomes if the spline did that to the wire. So it's always about
Yeah,
tension.
It's heavier. It's going to go where it's going to go.
Yeah. So you're always playing around with tension and
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
So then I took the octopus.
Yeah.
The spline is
Oh, that's the
actually
inside of it.
the inside of
Right.
it. So this is a basket base.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And you can see the spline, and then
Yeah.
I wove this nylon cord around it, and then so it's soft.
Yeah, right. Just like what it needs to be.
Right, and that created this sort of strange sort of shapes to it. So then I added legs, and I just
Yeah.
made the octopus. And then the seahorses are also twined.
And what makes twining? What is twining? Is
So
that just
twining
two-
is taking a weaver, taking spokes, like even think of the spokes of a wheel,
wheel, yeah.
and you're going over and under and over and under around the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the tension of what you're using as the weaver pulls it up into
I
a
see what you're
basket
saying.
form.
Yeah.
So again, I'm using the wire still. So the wire base is actually here.
Yeah.
And then it's paper yarn.
Uh-huh.
Twined, and then I crocheted the paper yarn and then twined it,
Yeah.
uncrocheted and twined it till it got, and then I crocheted it again. And this was one of the first times that I really was going for the form. Like I knew I wanted to make a seahorse.
Yeah.
How do you get the texture? My goal was to find out how to make that texture of the body of the seahorse.
Yeah. Got it.
And then when you open up the paper yarn, you actually get this white and green. So the grass therein is the white and green of the yarn.
I like this piece. What's this?
So that's a brain coral.
Yes.
So it's actually you take a big nylon rope
just
and you
unroll that.
unroll it so
Yeah.
that now it's all sort of loose, and then it's actually just puncture needle
Sewn. Yeah.
sewn together.
Yeah.
And these are tunicates. So it's a braid.
Yeah.
You're making a 5-pointed braid in the middle, and then you keep braiding it and braiding it. This is actually that Chinese finger torture, right?
Same thing. Yeah.
So that's where that comes from. And then coiling. This is coiling.
Just wrapping it. Yeah.
It's just
tightly.
wrapping
Yep.
stuff.
I've done that. Yeah.
So these are tube worms.
Ah, yes.
So I have a little.
You have a.
I have a
yeah,
little-
you identify them.
Yep, a little key so that you could, and then these are coiled. So these are cotton crochet cord,
I see it.
and the joy of using a multi,
Is it wax?
it's waxed,
Wax, yeah.
just candle wax.
Yeah.
I melted red candles
Yep.
and then dipped
Dip
it in. But by using the core having multiple pieces to it,
Yeah.
I could keep adding fiber every time I split it. It
Yeah.
wouldn't get smaller. So that's actually what makes this look right, is that it always stays the same dimension.
Yeah.
And then plating is the other technique. So random weave, twining, coiling, and plating, where all your weavers are equal.
Oh, okay.
So then I
Stuff,
made this,
yeah.
that's when I came up with the starfish, which was sort of starting with the 5 and then, and my squid, which is sort of everybody's sort of.
So wait, then how did you get to the tri-weave, which you now do every or
Okay,
so much?
so I did, so then, and this is also plated. So this is a hexagonal weave that then I interwove, so it doesn't look like that anymore.
Yeah.
So I got done with all of this. And I really love the look of the tri-weave. So I actually taught myself tri-weave right after this class. And I've been hooked on tri-weave ever since.
That's good.
So this is just the history. For me, this is history now, actually. People love it, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I'd leave it out all the time, and
Tells the story.
it tells a story. I had been a marine biology major growing up, so that's
Yeah.
part of,
Yeah, that's your past.
that's my past. And it popped back out again.
Ah,
So,
beautiful.
yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And then I got into the triaxial weave in the other room.
Cool.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks very much.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Great to meet you.
Yes,
Thanks for
good to meet you, too.
coming.
I'm glad I bicycled by and saw some balloons.
The balloons, they're everything.
They're everywhere, yeah.
Yep, having your sculpture in the museum and having balloons.
Yes,
Those are the
that's
two
what
biggest
got you,
things.
yes. Great.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Jeanne, that video was awesome of the aquarium. By the way, this is the only aquarium like this on the entire planet, right?
Yes.
On
yes.
the entire planet.
I did create all those creatures from my, I didn't know that those things were going to come out when I took my class. They just started being sea creatures. But the sea creatures, and you see so many sea creatures in art because the forms are so beautiful. You know, you're not stuck with having legs. Are there 2 legs? Are there 4 legs? Are there 8 legs? And so they can take on these rounded shapes, but they're elongated, or you know. And so I think that sea creatures naturally have a resonance in art forms.
Okay, so the next one we're going to see is about coiling, and I love what you've done with plastic bags. Wait do you see what she's done with plastic bags and plumbing supplies.
And plumbing supplies, the
Yes.
water tubing.
So let's check out that video.
Yeah, more of the aquarium.
More of the aquarium.
The first coiling project I did was, in fact, this, my tube worms. So, supermarket baskets, supermarket bags, and just cotton twine. I mean, it's absolutely nothing expensive about anything. And I kept it so that you could see, to add just that little bit of color, because tube worms have just that little touch of color in there. So that's what that is. But in coiling, the other things that I coiled were these jellyfish. And I can actually get the tails off of here. So the jellyfish, both jellyfish are in fact water tubing from like your ice maker, and your refrigerator has this vinyl tubing in it. So I just started with that. You can see I spent a lot of time at Home Depot to get my parts. And then this is GIMP, which is just that clear stuff that you made lanyards with at summer camp. So you starting the coil, so that they make the coil, and coiling is named because you wrap around it. It's not because of the coil that the core is. So I've done a little, actually I've done a hitch, a clove hitch all the way down in the same spot, all the way down, and then I've added more of the GIMP to make the fringe on the bottom of it. So that's how that one was made. Because you can't have an undersea exhibit without jellyfish. So the other jellyfish is actually the more intricate one. And this one, you can see how it doesn't look quite as clear, because I've actually taken monofilament, and I actually the whole thing is coiled tight with monofilament. And then every inch or so, I've looped it out to the next one to attach it. So you just keep wrapping around, and this is probably, I think I figured out this was like a 15-hour project to do this stupid little jellyfish. But coiling takes a long time. And weaving takes a long time, so that's actually sort of what for a lot of people, it's either this really relaxing thing that you do that just is like, you know, an evening project. You can sit down and you can just work on it and not care when it gets done. That's what a lot of people have to do with weaving. And the coral is also coiled and then dipped in wax. So that's my aquarium.
That was unbelievable. I love what you do with just something so simple like a plastic bag. Who knew?
The plastic bags are really fun to work with because you just keep stripping them down, and so you just, again, like that cotton core on the red coral.
Right.
You get to keep making that all the same size by stuffing another piece of bag in there, by pulling it, and and you just sort of keep going, and you get to wander. It's really coiling, particularly those tube worms. You just sort of, you go out, oh, I think it'll be this long, and then I'll wind it up a little bit and wrap it and keep a little tight wind there, and I'll start another one over here, and just, yeah, it's so free form for me. I tend not to do organized things very much. So the octopus would be rather organized, but the
octopus
coiling
is beautiful. I would love to have an octopus. Isn't there a Beatles song? I like to be under the sea in an octopus's garden in the shade. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Okay, so that was great. Now we're gonna see about your mad
right
weave
now. Those
with John, right?
right. A mad weave is a triaxial weave, so the weave goes in 3 directions simultaneously. So the center that you see is a 6-pointed star.
Okay.
Okay, and then you see a little triangle. Okay, so you see that? So that's all, it's just a repeat of all of those combinations.
Okay.
I mean, you see Z's, there's a bunch of other things to see, but in terms of symmetrical things, that's what you see.
Okay.
So this 6-pointed star makes it flat. And if you want to turn a corner, you create a 5-pointed star.
Okay.
So it takes 6 5-pointed stars to turn it into a column. So it's what I call a pencil holder.
Okay.
So now you've gone to something that's vertical.
Okay. So how do you make it go back outwards?
Okay, so back out is this point right here, which is a 7-pointed star.
Oh, okay.
And then it goes out again. So again, you need to have 6 of those to make it flatten out. So this is actually the first mad weave piece. It took me 3 months to weave it.
Okay.
And so you go out, and that's what took me 2 months, was this part.
To do the 7-point?
To do the 7-point, because you just splay everything out, and then you have this mass of stuff, and you have to figure out, where does it all go? So the problem with mad weave is that if this space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, has 8 weavers wide in 3 directions.
Okay.
So what's the math? Right, so it's 8 and 8 is 16, is 24. So there's 24 weavers making up this base. That means that there are 48 ends that you have to control where they all go.
Okay.
All along here. Once I turn out, now I'm adding more ends.
Okay.
For every turnout, I have to add another. For this one, I added 2 more ends for every turnout.
Okay.
Okay. Then I turned in, and then went around, and then I turned in a second time. And then I just curled all the ends. So some of these weavers close in, but I have 48 plus 12.
So that's 60.
That's 60, but there's 24 weavers in there, so that's 12 more. So that's
72.
So I'm at 72. I turn in and I lose 6 weavers. And I lose
Let's just
6.
stop the math there.
Right, right. So then to make all the curls, these are 1/2-inch weavers, so I cut them into 3 lengths. So the curls represent, every 3 curls represents 1 weaver.
Okay.
So when I make the curls on the top of my pieces, I don't actually add more weavers to make the curls. It's just
cut 3.
Yeah, it's just what was there. So we've got the mad weave base and the basic pencil holder. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And that's really what most people do with it. They don't do much else with it.
Okay.
But if we make a 4-pointed star, then it becomes a sharper corner.
Okay.
So now it takes 3 corners to make a column.
Okay.
And then we can go down all the way down to a 3-pointed corner, which gives us a really sharp point.
Kind of like a cone. Okay.
Yeah, like a cone. And then it only takes 3 5-pointed stars. I haven't actually yet built 2 3-pointed stars to find out how you mash, to find out what happens. And that's what all of this is about, what happens when you do this. So yeah, you can start to see all the weavers that happen even from this small piece. So this is actually, this piece, it was my experiment in finding how to make a penguin head.
Oh, okay, cool.
For my sister-in-law. She collects penguins. So once I got this nose as a beak, then I was like, okay, where do I go? Where am I turning corners to get it the right size and the right dimension? So most of my weaving is actually just exploring what happens if, because it tells you where to turn corners and it's really structural.
So did you shape the body of the penguin?
The body of the penguin, yeah, I did. I made a neck. He has a neck, and then his body sort of goes out just a little bit all the way down. And then I had to weave inside and make a hollow base for him to so he stands on himself, and he has arms that stick out.
Okay, cool.
So weaving to separate the parts is a whole nother exploration that I've done a couple of times, is trying to figure out how do you weave it and keep it accurate and not actually misinterpret their weave. And some of it you have to actually add more weavers on. And so yeah, those are all different little bits of. So if you just randomly start to turn corners, you start to end up with a random shaped piece. I kind of like it. I kind of like the.
Find out where you're gonna go.
That's right. That's right. So for a long time, I was weaving, having no clue what it was going to become.
And now you figured out if you do different points, it'll be a different shape.
Right. So I'm starting to understand the math of it. It's really math without numbers. So expanding. So this is expanded in 3 spots, and that pulls it out into this curve. And then I actually did a corner, so it's hooded, so it comes back in tightly on top.
Oh, wow.
And then I've added weavers into the middle to make this yellow center, so it's sort of a Jack in the Pulpit feel to that one. Oh, I like my rutabaga too. That's one of my. It's really pretty simple. It's a 5-pointed base. So then when your base is 5-pointed, then you only have 5 more to make your column. And then 5 more, and you go up. And then I just have all these weavers sticking out. So I really like this one. It's really simple, but it's really effective. So it's just my rutabaga.
What's
And
that?
this is a tree trunk.
A tree trunk.
Yeah, see?
Those are the roots?
Those are the roots. There you go. So, but this is the base that I started with, and then make my 6 corners and come up and then turn out and then turn in. So this was actually about making a round form and then turning back in. And then I didn't really want to just turn it back in again. If you've seen the bubble at the museum, it's actually got this same starting form on it. But this one I then just sort of went crazy and just said this was more trying to separate the parts out and how do you split stuff off and what happens if I go out here, keeping symmetry, but then, and so the whole thing started to go awry really, and I was just sort of like, oh my God. So then I realized that if I turned it upside down, it really just sort of looked like a tree trunk. So I left it at that. Curled all the ends and left it at that.
So you can actually make the whole tree out of it?
So this is my tree. So I have a tree in miniature and a tree trunk.
So it all goes together.
It all goes together. Yeah, and then this shelf is, these sets of shelves are really just my explorations. It's actually, the shelves themselves are piano keys. It's a piano. So this is the keys, where the keys go. And then you can see the keys in there. Most people don't recognize it. When you first look at it, you see all the stuff I have packed all over it. But most of them are Mad Weave experiments or hexagon experiments. Here's my foot. I was very pleased. I was very pleased to be able to make a...
Now that one's different because it's separated.
Right. So this is a hexagon weave. So on the bottom where I haven't tried to tension it and pull it, you can see that it just makes a series of hexagons. And then you turn corners by making a 5-sided instead of a hexagon. And so the triaxial weave is actually built inside of this.
Okay.
And that's where we get into that star pattern. So that brings us to this basket, which is like the flat piece that has the hexagon weave. So all the white weavers, you see the same hexagon pattern. And then these are interwoven. Okay. So I do it simultaneously in this basket, but I can only turn corners at the stars that are all the same size.
Okay.
Because there are, in fact, stars in here that are not the same size. They don't look like stars in this. So it controls where you can turn corners. So in fact, this basket is either really tiny or really big. So you can't sort of have a middle size that you can with some of the other.
Jeanne, the Mad Weave was fantastic.
So the Mad Weave like just occupies, and you can't really do anything else when you do the Mad Weave. But you see what you saw was all these things forming hexagons because it goes in 3 directions. You can't actually take 4 corners and make a box.
Right, right.
So this basket is in fact 4 corners, but you can see that it still goes out because we haven't completed. These corners are not 90-degree corners. You're accustomed to a corner being 90 degrees.
Right.
And these are 60-degree corners.
Okay.
So they don't completely make a box. So you have to do, then I've got these 2 corners, which are decorative just to bring the whole thing in and look pretty. But now, if I continued weaving this would actually form a column.
Oh.
So
okay.
So you don't get to the box until you have the 6 corners wherever they are. Unless you do tighter which I talked about in the thing. So it's just, there's all sorts of intriguing math without numbers aspects of Mad Weave.
And do you have to figure this out before you begin?
You don't.
So
actually, you can just begin.
Well,
and then you just turn some corners, and that's what some of the things you saw were like that blue funky shape. I just began it, and I just started turning corners. It actually took me a while to figure out that it was 6 corners that make that it sounds obvious, but it took me a while to figure out 6 corners makes the column.
When you start with this, do these this is bamboo, right?
This is reed.
Reed. This reed, does it go on forever? How long are they? How long do you have? I mean, do they come in strips of 4 feet?
No, they come in strips that are like 6 to 8 feet long.
And what happens
when
it ends?
And you take one. Well, you actually cut it to the length. You cut it however long you want a weaver to be.
So how do you know how long it's going to be? That's what I'm saying. How do you plan this?
So the longest weaver here starts here, goes all the way through and ends up here.
Oh, I see.
So that's one weaver.
Okay, so you do know.
So I need a weaver that's about that long.
Right.
So, but when I did this basket, I didn't actually know how big a basket I was going to end up with.
So what do you start off with?
So I said, okay, I'll just make my weavers this long.
Oh, I see.
And then I weave it. And then when I decide, okay, and this is more based on the base and the total volume, when do I want to turn this in and come up with this finished shape? And then chop that all off, and then put this band on it.
And it's seamless. You can't even see where it begins and ends. Can you see where that begins and ends? Unbelievable.
It's sort of, there's an end right there.
Oh, I do.
See that little edge right there?
I do see it, but it's so
But then, see, what you do is you make it so that the inside one ends in a different place, and that one is underneath.
Oh, you're tricky. Okay, there you go.
And the other element that you do on this is you actually lay a small round reed inside
Yes.
between these two so that you can't see the ends of these weavers.
Okay. Okay.
So that's part of that's traditional basket making. There's absolutely nothing new or modern about this closing technique, this whole lacing it, because and that's why taking that class was important for me, because it's things like that you always just go back to basic techniques no matter what you're doing. How do you end it? How do you close it? How do you open it? How do you start a base? Those are all basic basket techniques that you have to learn
How long has basket weaving been around?
forever.
Forever. Okay, well, there you have
I
it.
mean, they don't have any idea when baskets started. Coiling, plaiting, twining, and random weave have all been around since man was around, and birds do random weave because we need vessels.
Birds?
Bird nests are all random weave.
Oh,
So, but
so nature.
Nature does it. And so we've always needed vessels. And this was the way to get vessels. So what we see across all the cultures in the world, we see these 4 basic patterns, weaving techniques repeated and learned independent of each other across cultures.
Wow.
Depending on what, and they're all, it's all natural material. So if you grow up in grasses in the plains or a place that has a lot of grass material, then you learn coiling. And so the Native Americans in the southeast, in the southwest, are coilers
Okay.
because that's what they have as access. In the northeast, you see more twining because we have all this shrubbery and bushes, so we can make sticks and then wrap things around them.
So this is a common thread, is what you're saying. This is a universal.
No, basket weaving is absolutely universal, and it's always had to happen at some point.
Okay. So now we're going to see the next clip, which is you and Dave. You're going to talk more about the Mad Weave.
Yep. We're gonna talk about the exploration of doing this with 2 different sized reeds.
Okay, let's check that out.
The triaxial weave is going in 3 different directions. So this experiment is actually pretty well into my triaxial weave work. So it's about exploring 2 dimensions. So if you look at all the white weavers, the 1/2-inch weavers, they form hexagons. So the hexagonal weave you see a lot. It's actually a fairly common weave. It's a very open weave. And then I actually, and this one was the first time I tried it, but I hand threaded all of the smoked reed through the whole thing. It was ridiculous, and it took forever.
But now can you do that? Do them both simultaneously?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can do them simultaneously, and I figured out, but part of it was exploring exactly how the weavers go over and under each other in the star formation, because you have to actually understand that in order to close the Mad Weave.
Right.
So closing the Mad Weave is just another insanity unto itself. So, but once I did that and realized that I could turn a corner at any of those brown stars.
Right.
And it's just a hexagon turned into its 5, which is how you turn corners in a hexagon weave. So that meant I understood that I could make a sculptural piece.
Okay.
With 2 different size weavers.
Right.
The next video is my, and I do call it a masterpiece because it's a masterpiece, is my Purple Passion, which is, I think it has 500 curls on the outer edge of it.
At least.
I think it's 200 actually. But anyway, it comes up and it comes out. So, and it keeps coming out, and it's about expanding and what happens if you keep expanding the surface. So it's part of my curves, my exploration of how to make curves in Mad Weave, Because Mad Weave is so structural and sort of just solidly there, and making it into this whole.
This is a
curve.
free form.
It is. What I did was I kept expanding and expanding, and
Yes.
and so it's a hyperbolic plane.
Okay.
So this is back to that math.
Oh, okay.
So a hyperbolic plane is the fact that if you take a flat surface and you keep expanding it, it
Right.
has to create ruffles.
Right, right.
It doesn't have any place to go, so it has to wrinkle.
Okay.
So that's what I've done with this is I forced it to make ruffles.
It's beautiful.
And so it can be a passion flower. If you go and Google passion flower, you'll see that a passion flower is this big purple and it has all these frills coming up in a yellow center. Or it can be a sea anemone, which also has all those frills around it.
What's a sea anemone?
That's the animal that looks like the plant on the side of the coral reef.
Yes, and
that
I
has
knew
all
that. Didn't you know that?
That has all the tentacles. That come out.
Okay.
And so there's lots of variations on sea anemone, and some
Sure.
of them look an awful lot like that.
All right, so let's check it out.
Lastly, I want to introduce you to my masterpiece called Purple Passion. This is the piece that, if anything juries at the National Basket Organization, for me, that this would be it. So it's an interesting piece in that it's the same basket weave that I've been doing all the other stuff, but it's about expanding and what happens when you keep expanding a space. So it actually makes that into a hyperbolic plane. So if you're into math, you might even know what a hyperbolic plane is. But if you take a flat surface and you keep adding to it, it has to become a ruffle. It doesn't actually have a choice about what it's going to do. It just has to make way, so it has to start to curl. So what I've done, if we start at the bottom, we can see the same base that you've seen in lots of other pieces and the column going up. So all of that is in fact the Mad Weave in its 6 corners, and now I've turned out the 7 stars, so the same as the Mad Weave mushroom. But then what I did was I then continued to expand it. I never went back in. So if I keep expanding it, I knew that it had to make ruffles. And then, so I keep expanding it, and then as it ruffled, then I expanded this top so that it started to curl itself back in. So I haven't actually counted them because I have to figure out, I expanded 1, 2, 3, 4 times on each petal. So there's 2 or 3 or 4 weavers in between each expansion. And then I cut them in half to make the curls. So I have somewhere in the vicinity of 500 curls on this basket. And if you look at the flower, the purple passion flower, it actually has 6 petals, and then it has all these curls on top of it, and it has a yellow center. So that's how I got to the yellow center, was for the purple passion. For me and all my underwater stuff, it really looks like a sea anemone, but you can take it anywhere you want. But in order to create something with this complexity, you have to have some passion behind it. So that's how it gets its name, really, is about how crazy am I to do this. So that's my purple passion, so I'm looking forward to sending it off and see what happens.
Jeanne, that's my favorite. That's my favorite.
People like that, yeah. As you saw with my weaving that I was doing in my class, Natalie Miebach really emphasized materials and exploring materials. So this is my Mad Weave material exploration. So these columns are actually hollow. They're actually all woven in Mad Weave. They're flat. They have nothing inside them. They weigh less than 20 pounds. They're actually made out of treadmill thread. So they're recycled. I slice them up into 2-inch slices. And I weave these columns because they hold together. So all of these tops are variations on, they're all slightly different from each other. My goal is to weave a little tiny portion of this structure called the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. How hilarious is that? So these are basalt columns that come up out of the ground, And there's like 7 miles of Irish coastline that has the basalt columns on them. And so 6 does not, or 5, does not actually get you there in terms of the feel for the space. But I have 24 treads that I'm cutting up. It takes about 2, more or less, depending on exactly their size. It takes about 2 treadmill treads to make one of these. So I'll have in the vicinity of 12 to 15, because I'm gonna make some short columns. I haven't even done those yet. Column that's lying down, it's lying down because it's actually not, doesn't have a flat top on it. It actually, where I took and made my corners right in the center. So it's a 3 by 3 by 4 column. So it doesn't actually make a flat top, so it doesn't stand up. So that's why that was lying down. The rest of them stand up. And I'm just gonna keep weaving them. I was hoping to do an outdoor sculpture for Somerville Open Studios today, but that didn't happen. So that's okay. At some point you'll see all of these outside somewhere in Somerville, because I'll figure out where I can do an installation. And
Jeanne, I know. What do you think? One crazy chick.
So my sister said that I had to weave a Mad Weaver's hat. You know, the Mad Hatter?
The Mad
Alice in
Hatter. The
Wonderland?
Mad Hatter. The Mad Weaver hat.
So this is the Mad Weaver hat.
Okay.
Because I actually taught mad weaving for my teacher. Natalie had me teach a mad weave for one of her classes at the end of the semester. It was a little crazy to try to teach people mad weave in one evening.
Okay.
In 4-hour class. Yeah, it was a little tough, but we did it. Then about 3 people figured it out, and the rest of the class sort of was like, yeah, okay. Some people half figured it out. It's you don't just learn it in 4 hours.
So Jeanne, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did this all begin? Because, I mean, you collect scraps. I know you have a very interesting background, your mother, and what you've done, because you've done a lot of great things here in the studio with your skills pertaining to fabric. So where did this all begin? Take us on your journey.
I made my first dress when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And my mother,
8 years old?
8 years old. Yep. And my mother said, okay, you pick out a pattern and you pick out some fabric and you make a dress.
Really?
And
Did you
she
hear
didn't
that?
tell us
8
that there
years
was like a
old.
hard, like some patterns are harder than others. My mother wouldn't have told you that, you see. So my very first dress had inset sleeves and inset band across the front.
Right.
Because I liked it. I liked what was the pattern that was the picture, so that's what I wanted to make.
Sure.
And so I remember running up, down in the basement where the sewing machine was and cutting stuff and running upstairs. Mom, what's this? How do you do this? What's this? And running back downstairs and doing some more.
I bet you were cute.
She was not like there overlooking what we were doing. My mother is just to like, go do it.
So she didn't
And
put
my
any
father-
limitations on this, which is fantastic.
And while we were growing up, if you wanted new clothes,
You made them.
she would buy you fabric and she would buy a pattern.
Wow, that is
But
great.
but like go to the store and buy clothing, nah. So like if you wanted something fancy, you made it, and you had permission to do that.
Wow.
And then my father was an engineer, and his
Okay.
father was an engineer, and both of my brothers are engineers. So we have this whole dimensional engineering thing. In
So
my
you have the
family.
mathematical background, you have the creative background, you put them together, and
my father-
excuse me, voila, engineering and creativity, this is what you come up with. Wow, you got a big head, because this is quite large for my head. I have a very tiny head. Oh my God, this is weird. Okay. Jeanne, thank you. That was great.
Thank you, Jojo.
Thank you so much. Okay.
see
Wasn't
you.
that great?
Yeah.
What a great talent. So nice of you to join us here at SCATV, and please join us again on Dead Air Live. We always have great entertaining shows. You never know what you're going to see right here on SCATV. Dead Air Live. Tune in for the next show.